Kimmy, we have a wonderful thing here in New York called moral relativism. Where you're from, in the Midwest, people say, I'll never cheat on my wife, or I'm not gay, I'm a wrestling coach. And then one day, poof, the wheels come off. They do it all in 1 week and it drop dead. Here, we say, so I kissed a priest in a leather bar. Who am I hurt?
Good afternoon. Welcome to AOL. Is Tish in the house? Tish school? Okay. Well, welcome to the Q&A with Miss Carol Kane. I'm John Fugelsang.
Hi. Thank you so much for coming here.
And we both wore black. We're real New Yorkers.
Oh, definitely.
I
have a white button.
Okay, I have a white shirt, so we're ending our street cred a little bit. But welcome on a very, very unpleasant day. This is extremely hot here in New York. It's Paris Hilton weather, hot and unpleasant. And it's really an honor to have you here. I'd like to begin by congratulating you for the spectacular reviews you've received for season 2 of Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt on Netflix.
Excellent. Of course, I'm thrilled to hear that, and I can't read them, because what if they say something bad about me, which, that could happen. So I don't read them, but I'm glad they're good.
Has that always been a rule for you, that if you believe the good stuff, you got to believe the bad?
It's always been a rule for me, but it's a rule I've broken a couple times, and I always regret it, because somebody's not going to like you inevitably, right?
Yes, I think I know what that feels like. When you guys showed up to begin filming season 2, was there a different feel on set knowing that this show had become such a huge hit right away?
I think there's a big responsibility that goes with people waiting for your second season, and you don't want to let them down. And I think in terms of the writing, Tina Fey and Robert Carlock just outdid themselves. It was great on the first season, but it's even better the second season. And I think we were able to have a little more fun knowing that basically people were going to be trying to be kind to us.
Of course, you guys know the last time Miss Kane was a series regular, she walked away with 2 Emmys for Taxi.
Thank you. But of course, many of you are too young to have seen Taxi, I guess. But do you watch it on the reruns on something or other?
On
Hulu
the
or TV Land? Or?
I mean, everyone's grown up with Taxi. It's had such a great life in syndication. And to go from a character like that to Lillian, I'm wondering, what was it about this landlord that appealed to you? Because you weren't a season regular for season 1.
The first season, I was on 9 episodes, but I was not considered a regular. And then so happily for me, they brought me back and made me a regular. Thank you. I'm so grateful. I love it so much. I love my coworkers and the writing. It's a special thing to be able to trust the writing, don't you think? I mean, if the writing is good and you can just say, well, I'm not even sure what I'm saying or how to do it, but it's so good that it's going to take care of me. That's a luxury, and it's one that I've had a few times in my life, Taxi and this, and certain movies definitely, but it's kind of a rare luxury.
It seems like possibly the most fun sitcom to work on in all of TV. And it certainly seems like you guys have a lot of fun whenever you show up on set. Is there a lot of rehearsal for episodes of Kimmy Schmidt?
Sadly not, because it's not a high budget show. And so time is always expensive, and they can't really take extra time to fool around, as it were. So there's less rehearsal than I would like, because I come from what are called 4-camera shows, most of them directed by the great James Burrows, and that includes Taxi and Cheers. we rehearsed all week long, and then we shot the show on a Friday night after we were really running it like a play. And since I come from the theater, that was something I was comfortable with. And but I've done enough movies to know how to just plunge in and hope for the best as well.
So when you guys show up, you have to be there, bring your A game, hit your mark right away. Is there any room for improvisation or ad-libbing, or do you hear to
They
test?
don't frown on it, and we've all tried it, and we've all come to the conclusion that our ad-libs are not nearly as good as what they wrote. So we don't do a lot of it, but we're allowed to do it.
It seems like Lillian has become much more maternal this season to Kimmy and Titus than she was in the first season.
Oh, definitely. I somehow, well, because what's happened, if you watch the show, is that we've become a little family. I, as the landlord, invite myself over to their apartment whenever I want. And we've just come to kind of depend on each other. And I am the older and theoretically wiser one. So I have taken the place of being kind of their mom.
I think it's a testament to how much humanity you've given Lillian that her character has grown so much in the second season. I think my favorite moment of possibly all of season 2 is you being serenaded by Fred Armisen on a ukulele in one of the most lovely romantic scenes I've seen.
I love that scene. That's probably might be my favorite scene in the second season because it was just serious and simple and straight. And the song was written by Jeffrey Richmond, who writes all the music for the show, who happens to be married to Tina. He's one of our producers, and he's a brilliant composer. So it was a privilege to sing that. And Fred is a wonderful musician, so that was great.
Do you hope that we will, in the future seasons, learn more about Lillian's backstory, or do you want to keep her a bit of a mystery?
Oh, no, I'd love it to unfold, and I'd love to know what it is. But I think that you have to delve into people's backstory to get to know them better and the whys of their behavior, which is always interesting. And I think my backstory is long and complicated and emotional, and yeah.
You know, it's incredibly daunting to sit down with an actor like this and try to make small talk about her career. Because when you go through Carol Kane's resume, it's the sort of career that any actor would dream of having one day. To have a career that spans the stage, television, and film, a career where you can mention films like Annie Hall, where you can mention films like The Muppet Movie, where you can mention films like When a Stranger Calls, and of course, your many years on stage, especially Wicked. And it's amazing to me that you've become so renowned for comedy and have proven yourself to be one of our great comic actors when, if you look back at Hester Street, your Academy Award nominated role, it must have seemed in the beginning that you were going to have a career doing a lot of straight drama.
Well, it's the career I had when I was young, and I got my union cards, SAG and Equity, when I was 14, and so even though I was young when I did Hester Street, I'd been at it for a while, and most of what I did was dramatic. And then I did Hester Street. I did not work for a solid year. After I was nominated for Best Actress, the phone did not ring. I just pick it up and, yeah, it's working, but nobody's calling. And then one day, out of the clear blue sky, I got a call from Gene Wilder, who offered me to co-star with him in The World's Greatest Lover, which was my first comedy. I had never thought of doing anything comedic before, so that was my story. And I love them both. I mean, I love drama and comedy, and would be feeling a little starved and hungry if I was not allowed to do both.
Well, it seems like you approach both with the same discipline and the same commitment to character. I mean, I've never seen you play anything for a laugh, even on Taxi. You were so committed to what she was going through in every scene.
Well, I had a magnificent teacher on Taxi because the first time I did Taxi, I was sort of thinking it was beneath me because in those old days, people did not do TV and movies. You were either a movie actor or you were a television actor. And so when I first did my first Taxi, I was preparing like I would for any drama, et cetera, and it went well. And then I got invited back, and Jim Brooks, whose work I'm sure you know in terms of endearment being one of the things, I started thinking, I really want to impress them because I want them to ask me back. So I'm going to try and be as funny as I possibly can. And he just lit into me, and he said, look, you don't try and be funny. If the writing is funny, they'll laugh. And if the writing is not funny, we have to fix it. But you are not to be winking at the audience and trying to be funny. It's sort of a deadly thing in some way, I think. And I feel uncomfortable when somebody winks through jokes with me, like, you get it? You get how funny I am? That to me kills the story, you know? So I had this early lesson from Jim Brooks.
The scenes of you with Andy Kaufman are just some of the funniest scenes in all of that show's history.
Thank you.
Do you ever think he'd be amused at the cult of personality that's grown around him in the last couple of decades?
This is my instinct of the answer to that question. I don't know, of course, nobody knows, but my instinct would be that he would be amazed, as he was by many things, because he had a kind of purity, fundamental sort of still very, very alive child in him at the root of everything. And so I think he would just be in wonder. That's the word I want. Not amazed, in wonderment. I think he'd be very happy. Of course he'd be very happy. And of course he deserves this ongoing love that he's getting.
Is that childlike energy something that you've tried to cultivate and keep alive in yourself and bring to your performances?
I try not to stiffen up.
Yeah.
If that's, I guess that's maybe a version of saying that I like to play. I mean, I think if I'm having fun, maybe other people will have fun with me, and it keeps me interested if I can play, you know.
Well, I'm thinking of like the range between Alison Porchnick in Annie Hall and then the work you did in Princess Bride, which are...
That was when I was old.
But they're two totally different ends of a comedy spectrum, you know, the subtlety in Annie Hall and the broad comedy of your scene with Billy Crystal.
Yeah.
It just sort of seems like comedy has given you such a place to show such a range and really stretch.
Yeah, and I have fun, but for instance, Billy and I, speaking of backstory, Billy Crystal and I worked a great deal with the original book, and we created a whole backstory for ourselves and a whole way of being married for hundreds of years. You know, we figured out what the history was and what we had in common, and so that was fun, and yeah.
Rob Reiner was on my show a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about that film, and he's someone who really cares about rehearsal, coming from an acting background.
Oh, yes.
Does that make a difference? I asked about Kimmy Schmidt, but does it make a difference for you on a feature film set to be able to do more than just show up and hit your mark that day, but to be able to build the scene?
Well, it's relaxing. I think it's not just like, holy moly, there's a camera there. You know, it's not, you just, you know, work it out a little bit before they put it on film forever.
What about Annie Hall? When you got the call about that role, did you have any idea what an iconic film it was going to wind up becoming?
No, except that I was a Woody Allen lover. I mean, I thought all his films were little masterpieces and jewels, and so I just was thrilled to work with Woody. And then there again, it's the writing. All you have to do is say it, basically. And but you never have any idea whether what you're doing is going to work in the long run or not. I don't think, do you?
God, as an actor, you never do. You're at the whimsy of the director and of the editor.
Of the editor.
Yeah.
The man with the scissors. The woman with the scissors.
Yes.
Dee Allen, for instance, the great one.
When a Stranger Calls is one of the finest suspense works out of Hollywood in all of the 70s, and it's a film that everybody saw, and it even yielded a really cool sequel we were talking about earlier. Mm-hmm. For approaching a role like that, where you have to have the tension at such a high level, and yet restrain yourself for so much of the film, did you have a special process you used to prepare for that role and to show up on the set and be in that state of heightened reality?
It's the same process that I always use. I try and figure out the backstory so that I am coming from somewhere into the current story, where I came from just that day that I came to the house to babysit. What's that job like for me? Do I like doing that? Do I hate doing that? All those questions. And then I guess in terms of the tension, of course that has a lot to do with the way the film is shot. For instance, it's shot in a kind of a Hitchcock fashion where the camera pans down my body as I'm talking about something scary, and then it hits my shoe, and like by the time it hits my shoe, people scream. It's just a shoe, but that's the way it was choreographed by the director. And I did at that time feel that I had to stay in that kind of frightened mode, because she was so frightened. She was in the house alone. You know, I don't know if you all are old enough to remember, but the catchphrase was, "Have you checked the children?" And the children, yeah, so it wasn't pretty. And so I tried to stay in that place of fear. Now that I'm older, I think I might have been able to be a little looser and less hard on myself. But
well, I mean, the great line from that movie is when the cop says the call is coming from inside the house, and it's one of the great plot twists in horror cinema. I can only imagine for a film where so much of the shoot time you're by yourself, your concentration must have been amazing.
Well, of course, one is not by oneself on a film set. There's, all these people staring at you. But yeah, that's why you need the concentration. And again, and I'm sorry to keep repeating myself like a little robot, but the writing was great. And it kept the suspense, and I relied on that.
We were talking a couple of weeks ago about it's one thing to be an acclaimed actor. It's another thing to be a working actor. And one thing a lot of young actors don't realize going into the game is that even if you're famous and successful and have awards to your name, there are lean years. And
oh, boy.
You've spoken really honestly about the internal struggle that you've gone through as someone who's famous and yet has still had to go through those periods, as all real working actors do, where there's no offer, where there's auditions, where it's very humbling.
Humbling, that's a modest word for what it is. It's so...
But it's what they don't teach you at studio. It's what they don't teach you when you're getting the training.
There's just 1 in a million people, or 1 in, 5 million people that once they start working and become famous, they keep working. That's very rare. Many as I said, I was nominated for Best Actress, and the phone did not ring for a year. And I've had recent years where I went a year and a half without work, or when I was in Wicked for 4 years, and while I was in my last run of Wicked, I auditioned for another show. I guess I won't say the name of it, but I worked so hard on this audition, and I worked for like 6 months because they kept canceling the audition, and I kept working. I'd work with the singing coach and work on memorizing my lines and work on my backstory. Canceled. Okay, starts again. Work on my lines, work on my singing. This, by the way, was very expensive because of the singing coach. I don't really sing. So anyway, by the time I got to the audition, I thought, I was so nervous, and I thought it had gone very well because all the producers and the director and everybody applauded the audition. I went home and found out that I didn't get it. And I was crawling around the floor, basically. I mean, it's so devastating, the amount of rejection that you have to go through, and you just have to keep yourself connected to your artistry in some way in these very lean periods, and it's devastating for everyone, and it has nothing to do with talent. I mean, I see very mediocre people working all the time. I have friends.
You don't say.
Oh, shut up. But I have friends who are brilliant / genius actors who maybe are not working for a year and a half. Unfortunately, there's no fairness to it, don't you find?
It's really true. I mean, it's a lot like that other Woody Allen classic, Crimes and Misdemeanors, where the terrible things happen to good people and wonderful things happen to bad people, and there really is no
life,
logic
right?
to their life. Yeah, but I think in your case it seems that those times of humility or struggle or despair increased your humanity and in a way made you a better actor. Is that fair to say?
I don't know. I mean, I think those of us who survive gain a little more wisdom, even if we're not looking for it, because survival in itself is a difficult task for many of us many times during our lives. I mean, that's a talent and a gift right there. It's just survival, don't you think?
Oh, I do, and it's one of the reasons why one of the things I admire most about your resume is the amount of episodic work you've done. Seeing you show up on 2.5 Men, seeing you do voice work for a show like Phineas and Ferb, seeing you be an actor who shows up and works whether you're headlining or whether you're an ensemble player.
Well, the thing is, first of all, I love to act. And I'm not picky about the size of a role as long as it's written well. And here's the other thing. I have a mortgage. I have a mother. I have a dog. I've chosen to take those things on, and that means sometimes I have to work. It's just work. It's not, I've always dreamt of playing this part. It's work. You got to work sometimes just to make a living, right? And there's nothing bad about that, and onerous about that to me.
No, since I had a baby, I've said yes to so much stuff.
You have to.
And that's the life.
Here's another interesting thing I think about that is that you just never know what you're going to find when you get on a set. You may just think, oh God, this is not for me. But you may meet some extraordinary person in the makeup room, the DP, your fellow actors. You never know what you're going to find when you say yes. And I have a story, a little quickie, about when I was young and very successful and thought that that's the way my life would always be, because that's what you think when you're young. I was talking to my co-star Charlie Durning on When a Stranger Calls, and I said to him, Charlie, I just don't understand how you decide, what role you're going to take and what's right to say yes to and what's wrong to say. And I upset about the making the right choices. And Charlie said to me, I say yes to the first person that asks me. I just say yes. And yes is a powerful thing to say. It opens up life. So I kind of love that idea, not if it's a piece of trash, but if there are two pieces of work and you're confused, but somebody wanted you more, say yes.
He was such a wonderful actor, and he spoke at my graduation from NYU to School of the Arts, yeah. And you worked with him a couple times.
Yes, many
Dog Day
times.
Afternoon, and
How about Harry and Walter Go to New York, a film that no one saw, but I mean, yes, I worked with Charlie, I think, maybe 5 or 6 times, yeah.
Who are some of the actors that you've worked with that have left the greatest impression on you?
Well, Mr. Jack Nicholson, of course, who I've worked with twice, Carnal Knowledge and The Last Detail.
Yeah, not bad for your first movie, Ms. Kane.
And also great directors. That was Mike Nichols and Hal Ashby. I was so spoiled when I was young. I thought it was always going to be the creme de la creme, but, and who else? Did I say Al Pacino? Mr.
Not yet.
Pacino, who I did several plays with, and then Dog Day Afternoon. And you're always, the thing is, it's an opportunity to learn a little from the greats. It's just, one is so privileged to be in that position. Then I did, a few years ago in London, I did a production of The Children's Hour by Lillian Hellman.
With a great cast.
I worked with Ellen Burstyn, who was brilliant, and Elizabeth Moss and Keira Knightley, and the great director, in my opinion, for the stage, other than Mike Nichols, a man named Ian Rickson, who directed Jerusalem.
Oh, yeah.
Jerusalem on Broadway, which I hope some of you saw with the great Mark Rylance. There's a genius, So,
Well, you mentioned Wicked a few minutes ago, and you did the show off and on for quite a while, and on the road as well.
Yeah.
I have to imagine, for a working actor, to have your gig, your day job, be an iconic Broadway musical that has sold-out houses every night.
Yeah.
Not a bad way to spend your life for a couple of years.
It's extraordinary. It's unlike anything I've ever done on stage because it's sort of like a rock concert, except there's a really important storyline that is fulfilled, but the way people are primed sort of to love you as soon as you come out is so wonderful, You're not working against people saying, okay, show me something. And that's just great. And it's so much fun because, look, the wigs, the corsets, the insane makeup, the singing for those of us who don't sing. And it's just great. People fly around. What more can you want? There's actually glitter involved, which is why I became an actress in the first place, which I'm actually not kidding, because when I was little, I used to sit in front of the mirror in my bathroom with all these great art books that my parents had and just do the makeup for hours and hours. And of course, if anything had a sequin or glitter involved, that's the way I wanted to go.
I'd say the same thing, except my parents would find it tragic. I want to open it up to the audience, and if anyone has any questions for Miss Kane about Kimmy Schmidt or her career, please.
We're going to start with a question from an online viewer. So Don says, we learned this season that Robert Durst was an old flame of Lillian's. Are there any other famous ex-lovers Lillian has that we don't know about or will hear about next season?
Oh, well, my ex-husband, Keenan from Saturday Night Live, who is so great, who, if you are watching this show, you may know that I accidentally shot in our bed. I accidentally did that, but he is so great, and I love working with him, and I got to kiss him. You understand? Because here's the thing. At my age, kissing is not always involved, and it's very fun when it comes around. I rest my case.
Yes, you.
Hi, Miss Kane. Thank you so much for being here. My mom and I, we binge watched Unbreakable together, and we love it. So thank you for that. My question is, Lillian is such a colorful character. So do you have like a favorite moment or like a quote from her?
Oh God, you know what I like saying, and I've said it a couple of times now, and I hope I say it a lot more. I'll be in intimates. I like that. When Kimmy and I are shopping in the 99-cent store, I just say that and go. And I love it. I'll be in intimates. So that's one thing. And I had two duets this year, one with my ex-husband Bobby, Fred Armisen, and also I got to sing with Titus, who is, his voice comes straight from the heavens. It's not really fair. But I did get to sing with him, and that was fun.
Hi, Miss Kane. I love Kimmy Schmidt, and I really love Jawbreaker, and I wanted to know if there were any memories or lessons from that movie you took with you.
From Jawbreaker, okay. This is a terrible thing, but it's such a good movie, and I've also done several readings of the musical version of Jawbreaker, which hasn't gotten on, but it's very good. But I'm just going to say the honest truth of what came to my mind when you asked me, and I know it's the wrong thing, but it was one of the first movies when I realized that I couldn't watch the movie afterwards because the way I looked was unacceptable to me in person, because I was playing an older, mean teacher, and I just didn't like to see that. So I'm sorry, but that was one of the lessons I learned was don't look.
I'm told we have time for one more question. Is that you?
Hi, hi, Carl. I love you and Kimmy, and my mom loved you in Taxi, and she was wondering if you ever get together with the cast.
Oh, just tell your mama we get together all the time, all of the time. I just got Chris Lloyd an apartment in my building here in New York. Tony and I go to so many things together. Danny just bought an apartment that I used to own, and Rhea, she wasn't always on Taxi, but sometimes I'll be seeing her this week. And Mary Lou comes in and we do her radio show. We just got to be together at the Jimmy Burrows tribute. We all got to sit at one table, but I have to tell you, I think we're sort of in love, and that's going to be the way it is.
Tony actually brought you back on his sitcom in the late 90s to play
Yes,
his wife.
He did. I'm telling you, here's another problem. Tony Danza gets handsomer every year. And is that fair? Not to me.
This has been a real pleasure for me, and I thank you, and I thank everyone at AOL and all of you guys for coming out here today.
Thank you so much.
And for an actor like this, for a woman like this who has, been a star of film, a star of TV, a star of Broadway, to keep on pushing and growing and getting better, it's an inspiration to everyone in the creative arts. And I thank you on behalf of all your fans for all the good work that's yet to come. Carol Kane.
Bless you. Bless you all. Thank you.